During the stream where I reacted to Prodigal Son, I got a massive donation asking a fairly complex question. What would the world look like if the Beast from Infamous 2 was a real thing? Like, how would people, governments, and religious organizations react if the world was being attacked by a monster of that magnitude? Now, normally I don't just accept any request that comes my way, but this time I figured it would be a fun exercise in world building. Right off the bat, let's get this scenario clear. This is what would happen if the Beast, as it is in Infamous 2, traveled to our world. So, in our world, there are no conduits, meaning that it would literally be a force of destruction that, as the world would see it, has no clear purpose. I'm also going to try to keep things fairly timeless, so I'm not going to be naming any specific names of world leaders or religious leaders. As for where it begins, the Beast appears in Empire City in Infamous, so it only makes sense that I throw it smack dab in the middle of New York City. As a mysterious vortex materializes in the heart of New York City, chaos ensues in a matter of moments. The sheer magnitude of its arrival shatters the skyline, sending shockwaves of panic rippling through the streets below. Buildings crumble like sandcastles in a hurricane, their once solid structures reduced to rubble in the blink of an eye. For those who experienced the horrors of 9/11, the sight of destruction unfolding before their eyes triggers a visceral response, dredging up painful memories and instilling a sense of dread that grips them to the core. Amidst the chaos, confusion reigns above all else. Civilians scramble for safety, their frantic movements fueled by instinctive survival instincts. Emergency sirens wail in the distance, their piercing cries adding to the cries of terror that fill the air. As the Beast fully materializes, its towering form casts a shadow of terror over the cityscape. Its presence defies comprehension, a monstrous entity from the depths of a nightmare that manifests in the heart of civilization. Panic spreads as the realization dawns that this is no mere terrorist attack or natural disaster. It is something far more sinister, something that is beyond human understanding. As the Beast's rampage unfolds, the United States military mobilizes in a desperate attempt to contain the unprecedented threat. The United States military moves swiftly to surround the waters around Manhattan, deploying ships equipped with advanced weaponry and surveillance systems. Simultaneously, the Air Force and Marines spring into action, their aircraft and ground forces ready for combat. As the military personnel prepare for battle, the towering figure of the Beast, standing at a staggering 45 meters or 150 feet in height, they are confronted with a foe unlike any they have encountered before. Their initial attempts to engage the creature with conventional weaponry prove ineffective, as bullets and missiles alike seem to bounce harmlessly off its impenetrable exterior. In the face of such incomprehensible destruction, theories spread regarding the origin and intentions of the Beast. Some attribute its appearance to that of foreign powers, pointing fingers at nations such as China or Russia. Others entertain the notion of extraterrestrial involvement, speculating that the creature is a part of an alien invasion force. Meanwhile, a faction of skeptics dismiss the entire event as a government conspiracy. For the religiously inclined, the emergence of the Beast holds profound significance, evoking apocalyptic imagery and stirring interpretations of divine prophecy, such as seen in the Book of Revelation. Many interpret the cataclysmic events unfolding before them as these signs of end times, drawing parallels to scriptures and teachings that foretell the coming of a final reckoning. In Washington, the leadership of the United States, including the president, would be immediately escorted to a secure bunker underneath the White House. Inside the bunker, the president would be pressured to make the biggest decision in the history of the United States, whether or not they would launch a nuclear missile at their own country. This would no doubt kill millions of innocent Americans, but if this beast was to roam outside Manhattan, it could kill millions more. After a grueling few minutes, the decision is made to launch the nuclear warhead. An ICBM launched from a nuclear silo in Virginia takes but minutes to reach the heart of New York. There, the beast has completely leveled all of Manhattan, reducing it to a cratered and hellish wasteland devoid of life. A few seconds after the ICBM spots its target, the missile collides with the beast. An instant later, a chain reaction is triggered within the missile's warhead, resulting in a 5 megaton nuclear explosion. The blast blinds anyone looking at its general direction. Those furthest from the blast would eventually gain their sight back over a matter of minutes, though those closest would be completely blind for the remainder of their short lives. The nuke would eradicate the beast, though the resulting shockwave would also level what was left of Manhattan and destroy most of the surrounding boroughs. The remaining mushroom cloud would tower over the dull rubble, as the military would swoop in to confirm the kill. After a brief pause, they would confirm that the beast was nowhere to be seen. Cheers would erupt inside the presidential bunker, though the president would remain stoically silent, reminding themselves that they would forever go down in history as the only US president to detonate a nuclear device over a major populated city. Little did they know that this would not be what they would be remembered as, because their true title would be that of the last president of the United States. Only a few minutes after the nuke's detonation, the beast would re-emerge from thin air. This would be reported to the president, and those hopeful cheers that filled the room would be immediately silenced. If this creature could not be killed by one of the largest nukes in the United States' arsenal, then it was indeed invulnerable. To the president, this meant that the future of humanity was clear as day. They would either die at the hands of this beast, or kill themselves in an attempt to destroy it. Within just days, a sense of urgency grips the global community like never before. Emergency summits are convened, global alliances are formed, and unprecedented collaborations between nations take shape as humanity confronts the greatest threat it has ever faced. Never before has humanity been able to put aside its differences to face a common goal. Of course, there were some governments who kept to themselves, but most found it in their hearts to help. After all, if this was to end, this level of destruction upon the United States would put themselves at a massive advantage. After a few short days, military forces from around the world converge on the epicenter of the beast's rampage, deploying any and every cutting-edge weapon or technology that has been kept hidden from the general populace. Elite special forces are deployed in a desperate attempt to contain and neutralize the beast. Coordinated airstrikes, ground offensives, and naval blockades are all implemented in a series of meticulously planned operations aimed at weakening the beast. Though, despite the scale and sophistication of these efforts, the beast proved to be an adversary unlike any other. Its otherworldly abilities and seemingly impervious defenses render conventional tactics and weaponry ineffective, leaving the military commanders and political leaders grappling with a sense of frustration and despair. As the devastation wrought by the beast continues to escalate, the global community finds itself increasingly desperate for solutions. Public outcry intensifies, with demands for accountability echoing across the ruins of once thriving cities. Governments face mounting pressure to devise unconventional strategies and alternative approaches to combat the seemingly unstoppable threat. However, as efforts prove futile, a growing sense of chaos and uncertainty permeates international discourse. Within the global coalition formed to confront the beast, divergent interests and competing agendas emerge, threatening to fracture the unity that was once humanity's greatest strength. Trust and cooperation give way to suspicion as accusations of withheld resources and hidden agendas are flung between nations. Amidst the growing discord, the instinct for preservation takes precedence, as each nation prioritizes its own survival and strategic interests above all else. In this atmosphere of escalating tension and mistrust, the threat of nuclear warfare looms even larger. With the world teetering on the brink of destruction, the once unthinkable becomes a terrifyingly real possibility. As diplomatic efforts falter and military options prove increasingly ineffective, the desperate search for a solution takes on a new urgency, driving nations to consider drastic measures in a last-ditch effort to save humanity from annihilation. As weeks pass and humanity's attempts to combat the beast prove futile, a grim realization sets in. Earth may no longer be safe for human habitation. With the beast continuing its devastating rampage unabated, governments and scientists around the world began to explore the possibility of abandoning the planet altogether in a last-ditch effort to ensure their own survival. In secret, each nation's individual space program begins to develop a plan to evacuate from Earth to a distant, potentially habitable exoplanet. After extensive research and analysis, a semi-promising candidate is identified within the Proxima Centauri system. Most nations' plans involve constructing a fleet of spacecraft capable of carrying a diverse array of specialists, resources, and equipment necessary to establish a sustainable colony on the exoplanet. These spacecraft would be equipped with advanced propulsion systems, life support technologies, and provisions for decades of space travel. To ensure the success of missions, rigorous selection processes are implemented to choose the individuals who embark on this perilous journey. Onboard priority is mostly given to scientists, engineers, and medical professionals, as they will be necessary for decades of onboard space travel. Alongside them, some noteworthy and/or wealthy individuals are on board to ensure genetic diversity, as well as to fund the project. Around the same time, scientists around the world would make a chilling discovery. The beast's arrival has triggered the release of a deadly pathogen. This plague would prove to be as insidious as it is lethal, defying conventional treatments and spreading with an alarming speed. As news of this plague spreads, panic grips populations already reeling from the devastation wrought by the beast. Hospitals, already overcrowded, begin to further overflow with the sick and dying. Medical supplies further dwindle, and makeshift triage centers spring up in city streets. Efforts to contain the outbreak falter as the pathogen eludes detection and mutates in response to attempts at treatment. With the world's resources stretched to the breaking point, and with no clear end in sight, desperate measures are considered in a race against time to save what remains of humanity. In a bid to contain the spread of the plague, quarantine measures are implemented on a global scale, with borders sealed and travel outlawed. Mass vaccination campaigns are launched, but the sheer scale of the outbreak overwhelms healthcare systems already stretched thin by the beast's rampage. Civil unrest erupts as populations decimated by loss and fear demand answers and solutions from their leaders. As the situation spirals further out of control, whispers of a final solution begin to circulate amongst those in power. Some advocate for drastic measures, including the implementation of martial law and the suspension of civil liberties in the name of public safety. Other, less fortunate countries call for coordinated global response, pooling resources and expertise in a last-ditch effort to combat the twin threats of the beast and the plague. After a few short months of intensive fighting, the United States would be the first to declare absolute anarchy. This would further exaggerate the chaos and violence already gripping the nation. With the complete collapse of governmental authority, lawlessness would spread like wildfire, leading to increased levels of violence, looting, and civil unrest. The abolition of essential services and infrastructure would intensify, plunging communities into further despair and desperation. Those in power who reside in bunkers, most likely built during the Cold War, would no doubt feel sorry for the ones on the surface. Little did they know that the raw power of the beast was far greater than their newfound homes. This was evident when the beast tore through the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, a massive underground bunker home to the president as well as other high-ranking government officials. This news was what cemented the fact that nobody was safe. Everyone who was on Earth was going to die. It's now been 4 months since the beast's arrival, and the world population has been cut in half. 4 billion souls lost to not just the beast and the plague, but also other human beings. Alongside this milestone came the collapse of the Americas under the relentless advance of the beast. The global community watched in horror as the once distant threat drew ever closer. As the creature set its sights on Asia, its path of destruction becomes a grim reality for nations around the world. The panic that ensues is palpable, as the governments scramble to prepare for the inevitable onslaught. China, recognizing the urgency of the situation, makes a desperate bid to escape Earth's fate. With their space agency hastily mobilized, they prepare for their mass exodus to the safety of the stars. However, the reality of the situation proves to be far more complex than anticipated. As the first spacecraft are launched in a desperate attempt to flee the planet, technical malfunctions and logistical challenges cripple the evacuation efforts. The public watches in dismay as the ambitious escape plan unravels before their eyes, casting doubt on the feasibility of such drastic measures. As news of China's failed attempt to escape Earth spreads, fear and suspicion grip the global populace. Questions swirl about the intentions of other nations and their plans for survival in the face of impending doom. Accusations of secrecy and betrayal echo throughout the world, further eroding trust and cooperation between nations already teetering on the brink of warfare. In the chaos and uncertainty, humanity finds itself teetering on the brink of extinction. As the beast's relentless advance leaves destruction in its wake, the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. With time running out and options dwindling, the survivors of this cataclysmic ordeal must confront the harsh reality of their situation. The world was going to end, and there was no surviving it. As the beast's relentless rampage continues unabated, nations across the globe are cemented into chaos and despair. With each passing week, more governments relinquish their grip on power, unable to contend with the sheer scale of destruction and the overwhelming sense of hopelessness that pervades society. In Europe, however, a few nations manage to cling to some semblance of stability, leveraging their relatively self-sustaining economies and strong social structures to weather the storm. Despite facing immense challenges and dwindling resources, these nations stubbornly hold on to their last vestiges of order, determined to preserve what little remains of their way of life. Meanwhile, the desperate attempts to escape Earth's impending doom yield little success. Most of the world's efforts to launch spacecraft and establish colonies on distant exoplanets end in failure before they can even leave Earth. However, in a stunning display of ingenuity and determination, Russia, having a matured and capable space program, succeeds in launching a spacecraft bound for Proxima Centauri, humanity's last hope for survival beyond the stars. The news of this unprecedented achievement spreads, sparking a flicker of optimism amongst the remaining millions of humans contained to Europe, as well as a few secluded islands. Despite this grim reality of their impending demise, the knowledge that humanity has a slim chance at survival beyond Earth's borders provides a faint ray of hope in an otherwise bleak and desolate world. As the anniversary of the beast's arrival approaches, humanity is now but thousands of souls spread across the globe. They have managed to survive this long thanks to their distance from the chaos, but this was soon to end, as the environmental impacts of the beast's path of destruction was increasingly evident in the climate. The world was now donned with thick clouds of ash, blocking plants from their much-needed sunlight. Acidic rain poured from the sky, destroying crops further and plaguing the dwindling clean water supply. This would go on for weeks, until eventually, the last humans on Earth would be wiped out. Death, war, conquest, and famine. This beast had brought about nothing short of the apocalypse, the end of all life on Earth, though not the end of humanity. The final humans would continue to travel through space for years on end. They would face countless challenges on their journey, but every single time they did, they would be reminded of their mission, one that was reflected in the name of their ship, Nadezhda. Translated from Russian to English, it means hope.